Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Iraq has asked the US to devise a mechanism for the withdrawal of the American troops. In a phone call with the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, Prime Minister Adil Abdul Mahdi rejected all violations of Iraq's sovereignty. Last week, Iraq's parliament voted to call for the withdrawal of the foreign troops after the US airstrike in Baghdad killed an Iranian commander. Iraq's top Shiite cleric Ayatollah Ali Sistani said the attacks on the country's soil. He said no foreign powers should be allowed to decide Iraq's fate. The U.S. House of Representatives has passed a resolution to restrain President Donald Trump from military operations against Iran. The non-binding war powers resolution comes after U.S. airstrikes killed Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani in Baghdad on Trump's orders. More in this report.
With the threat of a war between Washington and Tehran looms, U.S. House has passed a motion curbing the president's power to attack Iran. The non-binding war powers resolution calls for an end to any ongoing and future military action against Tehran.
The House will pass a war powers resolution to limit the president's military actions regarding Iran. Congress is reassuring our long-established oversight responsibilities as we mandate that if no further congressional action is taken, the administration's military hostilities with regard to Iran must end.
Meanwhile, President Trump continued mounting further pressure on Tehran, imposing a new set of sanctions for attacking its troops in Iraq. Trump also proposed an inclusion of Iraq and the Middle East into NATO to boost the alliance's involvement in the region's peace process.
I spoke to Secretary General yesterday, and we had a great conversation. He was very, I think he was actually excited by it. And I actually had a name. NATO, right? And then you have ME, Middle East. You'll call it NATOME. I said, what a beautiful name. NATOME. I'm good at names, right?
In a related development, France has refused Washington's call to exit the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. French Foreign Ministry said Paris remains committed to the framework of the Vienna-Iran nuclear accord.
The United Nations has once again urged the US and Iran to resolve their differences through dialogue. Delegates from 60 countries took part in an open debate at the UN Security Council on the US-Iran tensions. The US ambassador to the UN, Kelly Croft, said Washington is open to returning to the negotiating table. Iran's ambassador, Majid Takhtaravanchi, expressed distrust of the US, calling the missile attacks self-defense. He denounced the increased U.S. economic sanctions on Iran and called the Trump administration an unhinged regime.
The world is at a crossroads. With the end of monopolies on power, one unhinged regime is frantically clamoring to turn back time. This has meant more damaging American unilateralism in defiance of international norms and law. Most recently, the dastardly targeted assassination of the heroes who were the nightmare of groups such as ISIS.
Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says the region can't afford a new conflict. He was speaking to his Iraqi counterpart Muhammad Ali al-Hakim over the phone. The two leaders agreed to work together to ease tensions in the Middle East. Qureshi said Pakistan believes all parties should resolve the issue as per international laws. Earlier, the foreign minister met Iran's ambassador in Islamabad and said escalation of tensions in the region is in no one's interest. He said Pakistan is ready to play its role for peace in the region. Western leaders say it is highly likely Iran shot down Ukrainian plane that crashed near Tehran late on Tuesday.
US, Canadian and British officials say the strike could have been a mistake, with rocket launches and high tension in the region. They said the airliner, which crashed killing all 176 people on board, ignored flight prohibition orders issued by the US Federal Aviation Administration. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said intelligence from the multiple sources indicates the plane was shot down by an Iranian surface-to-air missile. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison and US President Donald Trump shared similar views. Iran has denied claims and invited the US to join probe and called on Canada to hand over information regarding the crash. The US National Transportation Safety Board has accepted the Iranian invitation. Iran has already sent an official notification and a preliminary accident report to the International Civil Aviation Organization. Meanwhile, the International Civil Aviation Organization has advised against speculation until the investigation is concluded.
Germany's foreign ministry has rejected US President Donald Trump's plea for European countries to quit the 2015 nuclear deal with Iran. Speaking in Berlin, ministry spokesperson Rainer Brohl said Germany still wants to save the pact. He said the deal is the best way to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. Brohl also urged Iran to fulfill its commitments to the agreement, as Tehran announced to further enrich uranium after the killing of General Qasem Soleimani. Meanwhile, European foreign ministers are set to discuss the crisis at an emergency meeting in Brussels today. Moving on to India, where the Supreme Court has ruled that the indefinite communication shutdown by the BJP government in occupied Kashmir is unconstitutional. In its verdict on petitions challenging the restrictions in the occupied valley, the court said internet access is part of freedom of speech. It also ruled the government cannot crack down on genuine protests in the territory. The judges said the communication blackout had gravely impacted the freedom of press. It noted that the government administration in the Indian occupied Kashmir did not issue any written orders for the curbs. The verdict directs the BJP administration in occupied Kashmir must review its curbs and present a written review within a week. Pakistan has asked the United Nations to act decisively to prevent a disastrous war with neighboring India. In a speech, envoy Munir Akram said Islamabad does not want a war, but if attacked, it will respond resolutely and effectively. Akram urged the bloc to enable the Kashmiris to exercise their UN pledge right to self-determination. The envoy pointed out a UN charter signed in 1945 promises to save future generations from the devastation of war. Akram further said the occupied Kashmir is under cruel curfew and communications blackout for over 150 days. He said all Kashmiri leaders remain in jails across India. Thousands of young boys have been abducted and tortured. Akram said signals from India of aggressive intent are also unmistakable. Pakistan has asked the US federal court to pause an Australian copper company's bid to enforce a $6 billion fine. The company, Tethyan Copper, won the award last July following a dispute over the rejected Reko Diq mining project in Balochistan province. Pakistan says it is looking to have the fine waived as it can have devastating consequences for its political and economic stability. In a brief submitted in the court today, Pakistan said it will try to annul the award based on numerous substantive and procedural errors. He said the enforcing the award will effectively negate a $6 billion loan it received from the IMF last year to stabilize its government and economy. This is the second largest fine issued by the International Settlement of Investment Disputes and equals 2% of Pakistan's annual GDP. Yemen's government have signed a new agreement with the Southern Transitional Council to implement the Saudi brokered deal. Under the new pact, both the parties agreed to withdraw forces from the port city of Aden. Saudi Arabia's ambassador to Yemen, Mohammed Al-Jaber, also confirmed the deal signing. He said the second phase will include the return of all forces that moved from their main sites and camps towards Aden, Abyan and Shabwa. An appointment of a governor and director to Aden will also be made under the agreement. The pact will also include taking steps to implement the withdrawal under the supervision of the Arab coalition. Last year, Saudi Arabia persuaded the STC and the Yemeni government to hold reconciliation talks. 8 members of Iraq's Hashad al-Shabi paramilitary force are killed and several others wounded in airstrikes in eastern Syria. The Syrian war monitors say unidentified aircraft targeted vehicles and arms depots in the Abu Kamal area. They said 3 villages known for housing forces loyal to Tehran have been targeted by drone strikes since Wednesday. No side has claimed the responsibility yet. Meanwhile, a 6-year-long UN aid operation in Syria is on the brink of collapse if Security Council deadlock on the issue does not end by tonight. The 15-member council is set to vote again on 2 proposals after Russia vetoed the aid resolution in December. UN spokesman Stefan Dujarric said there is no alternative to reaching people in Syria without crossing the border. Moscow had presented another draft but failed to gain enough support to proceed. The global body's operation has been delivering aid across the Syrian border to millions of civilians. Since 2014, the UN and aid groups have crossed into Syria from Turkey, Iraq and Jordan at 4 places annually authorized by the Council. Security Council approval is needed because the Syrian government refused consent to cross-border deliveries. More stories to follow right after a short break. Welcome back. Heavily armed assailants have killed 25 soldiers in an attack on a military base in western Niger. The Defense Ministry spokesperson, Soleimani Gazobi, says 63 terrorists have been killed in clashes in the town of Tilaberi. Gazobi said the attack coincides with a campaign by ISIS and Al-Qaeda to force the Nigerian army back from its western frontier with Mali. He expressed condolences for the victims' families.
The Minister of Defense, in the name of the President of the Republic, Supreme Chief of the Army, and in the name of the government, presents saddened condolences to the victims' families and wish for the swift recovery of the wounded.
No one has yet claimed the responsibility for the attack. Now, moving on, Japan and Philippines have agreed to strengthen bilateral maritime security cooperation in the South China Sea. Japanese Foreign Minister Toshimitsu Motegi and Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte made the agreement at a meeting in Manila. Duterte expressed gratitude to Japan for its years of support. Earlier, Foreign Minister Motegi met with Philippine Secretary of Foreign Affairs Teodoro Locsin. Locsin told Motegi Philippines had removed restrictions imposed on food imports from Japan's Fukushima. Motegi welcomed the move, saying it will boost food exports. The U.S. State Department has approved the sale of up to 12 F-35B fighter jets to Singapore, worth nearly $3 billion. The U.S. Defense Security Cooperation Agency said the final decision is pending approval from the Congress. Singapore's Defense Ministry said the formal terms of the purchase will be negotiated after its approval. Last year, Singapore said it planned to buy an initial 4 F-35 fighters from Lockheed Martin Corps, with an option for 8 more. Singapore is looking to replace its aging F-16s. In Australia, authorities have asked over 200,000 more people to leave their homes as bushfires spread across the east coast. The government has also prepared a military backup with soaring temperatures and erratic winds fueling bushfires. In the border region between Victoria and New South Wales states, 2 fires are poised to merge and create a blaze of 600,000 hectares. In Victoria, authorities have asked people to get out and head for the remote and forested parts of the state. Australia's Department for Environment and Water has decided to kill 10,000 camels because of the extreme heat and drought. Firefighters are continuing to battle out-of-control bushfires, which have killed 26 people. In the United States, as the Consumer Electronics Show 2020 is underway in Las Vegas, the Chinese tech companies have unveiled some of this year's most innovative exhibitions. From autonomous taxis to AI robots, Chinese consumer electronics are highlighted at the event. The details are in this report.
With more than 4,500 companies unveiling their latest gadgets and artificial intelligence applications, at this year's CES, Chinese companies account for around 1,000. This is China's smallest share in the past 3 years. But still, the country has managed to impress tech-savvy audiences with some creative exhibitions. 3 laser TV, 8K screens, self-balancing electric scooter, autonomous taxis, and artificial intelligence robots are some of the Chinese-made contributions.
China boasts 5 of the top 10 smart connected devices in the world and 12 of the top 50 global consumer electronics brands. Chinese companies have their own core technologies and own patents.
A Chinese tech company also unveiled the world's first fully autonomous robot cat made exclusively to pet. It is not an ordinary robot pet. It sleeps, it purrs, it even hisses at you.
I think it's really cute. I've seen a lot of pet robots around CES over the years, but I think that one is particularly playful and expressive with the eyes, so I really like it.
Many of the gadgets will be available in the market by the end of this year. A number of Chinese tech companies have been listed as Consumer Electronics Brand of the Year.
Stock markets in Europe are trading mixed as the threat of an all-out war between the US and Iran fades. Investors are pushing fresh rally as market sentiments improve. CAC 40 in Paris is trading fractionally lower ahead of French manufacturing data for November due to release later in the day. Frankfurt's DAX is trading marginally higher as RWE shares climbed over 4% on expectations it may receive about $2 billion in compensation. London's FTSE 100 has also gained marginally, pairing early gains as B&M shares slump over 5%. In Asia, Seoul's Kospi gained nearly 1%. Nikkei 225 closed nearly 0.5% higher after Family Mart stock surged over 2% ahead of its third quarter results. Oil prices have dropped as the threat of war in major oil-producing Middle East region receded. Brent crude is trading at $65 a barrel after falling over 4% in the last 2 days. US WTI crude oil slipped lower to $60 per barrel after it plunged 5% on Wednesday. Oil prices have recovered to where they were before a US drone strike killed a top Iranian general on January the 3rd. Another weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.news.